if you don't first believe it's possible, it can't happen. Translating to, if you're not the person most excited about what you're doing, how can other people get excited? You said something when we were planning this that I thought was really profound. And you said, we don't want to take the wind out of the sails of the boat that we made. Welcome to Something More Human. I'm Sam.
And I'm Elliot.
Post-pandemic, it feels as though our social skills have atrophied.
It feels like the barrier to entry to meeting new people and cultivating community is higher than ever before. But we believe that meaningful relationships are the key to a fulfilling life.
So we're ditching the surface level conversations to ask and answer questions all about human connection. Join us in creating something more human. We're calling our new studio / new apartment / new living room setup a new era. And that feels like it is just the starting pin of a domino of big things that are happening for us this month and beyond, as a testament to kind of a new era or a new level of transformation. So I wanted to talk about the power of recognition of change and transformation in your own life, for better or for worse, and like how we can leverage that awareness to, I don't know, like Mario Kart, like double speed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the sound? Like, bloop?
Oh, I don't know about that.
What sound does it make?
I won't do it. I don't really know what it is, but that wasn't it.
Okay, well, insert sound here, please. Future producer, which is me. Okay, so this month we have moved into a new place. We have our first two, I'll say, famous guests. We are going to a podcast conference. We are changing the way that we strategically plan and research our recordings and episodes. And all of that is happening in like a 2-week span.
Mm-hmm. I'm literally so caught up on how self-serving all that sounds.
Oh, that's not even at all where I thought you were going. I thought you were going to say.
I could tell. I thought you thought I was going to say something positive.
I thought you were going to say I'm so caught up on how you did that. Because I booked these guests.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's all you, man.
It's not, but
I'm being sarcastic. It's definitely not all you. But you did do the outreach, and that wouldn't have been possible without you. But yeah, I'm like, all I can think about, and it's obviously like I have so much recovering to do because like I'm that person, or like I think that I like pride myself in like being able to see other people's points of view. And part of me, like one part of me, like maybe there's 10 of me, and like one part of me does see like I would never listen to a podcast like that, especially if I didn't know them, because I would just think, oh wow, like tooting their own fucking horn, dude. I'm like, well, who else is going to toot our horn? Why don't we get to do that? And also I have to understand, like we're not for everybody. Clearly, look at some reviews. Like we can't please everybody. Mm-hmm. I can't please everybody. Like if those people, inevitably one person that listens to that first part will think that. Like I really believe that wholeheartedly, that someone, and that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. That's like totally fine. Like maybe they have stuff to work out, or maybe they don't. Maybe they generally think that and they're allowed to. But like we're doing it because I'm realizing we're doing it because, first of all, like this is our life. This is like our documentary. This is we deserve to talk about this stuff. Like it's what we're doing, you know?
It's like literally our life's work at this very moment.
Yes, but also like we're speaking to our friends.
Yeah, I mean,
we're speaking to people who want to be inspired. We're speaking to people who are hopefully where we are or way further along or behind, and want people that they can relate to, and want people that can inspire them and that can hold them accountable and that can like be there for them, because we are like, we always tell you that, whatever, our DMs are open or we're always down to meet, like that is who we are. That's who we'll always be. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think
why would we not do this?
The purpose is not for us to be like, check out all the cool stuff we're doing, but the purpose is like, how are we leveraging this cool stuff to talk about the tangible ways that you can do it in your own life on whatever scale that is.
Exactly.
Before we jump in, I want to talk about like novelty as we get older and the passage of time. So I can't remember where I heard it, but there was a talk about as we get older, it feels like time moves faster. Mm-hmm. And that is because in our first like 10, 15, 20 years of life, massive milestones are happening and like tons of things are taking place in short periods of time. So when we get older, it feels like time condenses and it moves so quickly because we're experiencing less novelty.
Yeah.
And when we do things or stretch ourselves or have more novelty in our lives, we can also kind of expand time. So by taking a moment to be intentional about recognizing when you're in transformation or when you're going between milestones or chapters of life, I think we can also extend time for ourselves and in the moments of transition, intentionally boost up. What is it called when you get like a thing in a video game? A boost.
Level up? An upgrade?
Yeah, I don't know.
No. I don't know what but you're kinning or liking it to like Mario Kart.
Yeah.
You get like what are those? Yeah, those have to have a
boost up.
Those have to have a name.
That's gotta be it.
It's just like a little power box.
A power up. Power up?
There we go. Sure.
You guys know what I'm talking about, okay? So we are in that moment and I want to like take the time to both reflect on it and give ourselves and you all as listeners power in expanding time and powering up, capturing the power up, whatever. So you were talking about, Elliot, when we were planning this, you were talking about an interview with Tyler, the Creator that you watched. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, he was basically saying, I forgot who was interviewing him. I think maybe he was in front of an audience. Doesn't matter. If you follow Tyler, the Creator at all, it's probably a video you've seen, but he's basically saying like he knows a lot of people in the industry and even has friends that, speaking about musicians specifically, or maybe even visual artists too, but they go through all of this pain and sacrifice and all of this time spent and all of this collaboration and all of these like, blood, sweat, and tears, to come up with this project, let's say a record. Sometimes it's taking, months and years. And then when it finally comes time to release, they post about it once or post about it in their story and say, hey, it's out. Like, thanks for listening. And then peace out. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, he doesn't say this, but what he's saying is like, you are responsible for generating your own hype and you owe it to yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you doing not doing that? What are you doing spending all this time on the thing that you love the most and then just talking about it once or twice? And I think that, maybe it comes from a good place from a lot of people. I think it's insecurity, but I think someone, for me, it's probably that, but it would also be like, you want to at least appear humble. Mm-hmm. That's what he's saying. I think that we owe it to ourselves to provide ourselves the power to realize what a big deal it is and to get people to care because you're the only one that can care the most. And posting about it once or twice does not show that you care. Mm-hmm. And all that stuff is psychological. Like people can perceive that subconsciously when they're ingesting your content.
Well, it almost reminds me of like, if I get a call and I don't answer, if you don't leave me a voicemail, if you don't take that extra step and leave time to leave me a voicemail, like it must not be that important. Have you ever heard someone say that? Well, yes. If it's really that important, they'll leave me a voicemail.
We say it all the time.
Totally. So I think something that sparked for me when you're talking about this is also like, we want to appear humble. We want to have this air of humility. But I'm curious about, it sort of seems like there's a pandemic of low self-esteem. Like, why are we as a society, or maybe just our generation, sort of afraid of success or afraid of appearing overconfident? Or I just find so often when I'm talking to people about like leveling up or about transformation or about entering new chapters, there's usually an underlying narrative that we tell ourselves, which is, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I am not this thing enough. And like, that's so common, but what is that about?
Are you asking or is it rhetorical?
Well, I'm kind of asking you. I don't expect you to have an answer, but like, what does that make you think?
I think that whether or not it's real or digital, like most of us are on the internet, most of us exist on the internet. And I think that like the appearing humble part or being low self-esteem is that we see, because think about it. It's not like only when you think about your own content, I hope you don't get bad comments. It's not only that like we're reading them, or it's not only someone like Ben Higgins is reading all these comments about like how, they're on her side, not his side from The Bachelor. Everyone else gets to read that too. Mm-hmm. And I think people are afraid of that. Like I'm afraid of that. I think people are afraid of like being judged on the internet because essentially that is like the town square for everyone to see. And I think the low self-esteem comes from we're way more addicted to like our phones and like screens than we realize. And I think that inevitably makes us, slightly maybe like more lazy or a little bit less connected to ourselves and a little more complacent and distracted. And to me, all those things contribute to low self-esteem because it's like, I know that I should be doing more. I know that I'm wasting my time. And sure, like, of course, I should just speak for myself, but I think a lot of people feel that way, especially men. I think that's why there's a little bit of low self-esteem. That's just my thought process about that.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I think about like we as part of Something More Human talk about social skills atrophying and like social skills are a muscle that you have to work.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that a positive mindset and a negative mindset are also muscles that work and grow and atrophy over time depending on how you utilize them.
Mm-hmm.
So when we spend a bunch of time consuming negative comments or dehumanizing people, it becomes easier to judge and complain and be negative. And so I wonder about how our perspectives and then inevitably our lives change when we put boundaries around that kind of consumption and intentionally grow the muscle of like hyping people up, hyping ourselves up, getting excited for people, being happy for people, being happy for yourself, and actively and intentionally practicing that.
Yeah.
I think that you said you have to, tell people why they should care and why it's a big deal. And you care the most. So if you are not acting like it's a big deal, how are other people supposed to know?
Exactly.
And it sort of reminds me of the mindset, like you have to first believe something is possible for it to be true. So if you are not super excited, how are other people going to be excited? Like you kind of have to lead by example.
Right. And that's like seems like it's like a prerequisite for. And then I'm like, well, is that true? Like, are there people that just want to? Yeah, and the answer is yes. Are there people that just want to create art for themselves and do? But the point is that if you're feeling a certain way and you want to overcome that feeling, then this conversation is for you. But like I'm saying, there are people that are more than happy to create for themselves and for no one to see it and be happy with the process, even maybe more than they're happy with the result. But like that's just not where we're at. Like we're not speaking to each other on these just to hear ourselves talk. Like that's just not the business that we're in. We want to be inspiring, and exactly like how can we expect people to feel inspired if we don't seem inspired about the thing that we're professing to be potentially inspiring for people?
Yeah, totally. Something that feels at the forefront of my mind in this phase of growth is we've said it before, the idea of action creating clarity. And I think because we are being conscientious and intentional about recognizing being in a phase of growth or being in a phase of transformation, we are able to take feedback and fill in gaps. And that piece of feedback is maybe something that gets missed from this conversation often. We went to a Creative Mornings meetup one time, our very first Creative Mornings meetup. If you all don't know what Creative Mornings is, it's like a global network of creative meetups. It's once a month. They're in cities across the world. There's a really, really strong one in Denver, and the keynote talk was around your art is, or art in general, is incomplete without an audience to perceive it. And as the creator, it is not our responsibility to tell or prescribe the audience and their reaction or response. So having an ear to the ground about what is working and what's not working and being open to feedback feels like one of these like power-ups for me. And so as we think about what are we doing in this current phase of growth to be better, on one hand, we're putting actions first. So we have no choice but to like put our money where our mouth is, right? So we just booked these big guests. Ben Higgins is The Bachelor on season 20. Dan Harris is a New York Times bestselling author of 10% Happier. These are people we're interviewing in the month of August. We now, like those are booked. So we are now obligated to take action to make sure that those episodes are going to rock, which requires planning. It requires research. It requires an outline. It requires so much more time and energy than we've been able to put into episodes thus far. So we have now elevated the bar of how we show up to these recordings. But we actually took the action first. We actually booked the guest first.
Right.
Which sounds backwards.
And now that you're saying that, it's like you feel like you want to wait until, like for me, definitely would be like, oh, I want to wait till I feel like my writing and scripting skills and my conversational skills and my confidence, on camera is better, and then we can book Ben Higgins. Like that. How dare you? How dare you? That's
Phoenix just laid down
rude.
And shut Elliot's laptop.
And I don't know. I'm just like seeing myself in that place so many times in life, and I'm sure that other people have been there too. So I'm like trying to speak to those people, like, and you've heard it a million times. So I guess I just have to say it the same way everybody else does, which is like, it is possible. You just have to do it, which is just not advice. But I didn't think about that. I wasn't like, please don't schedule Ben Higgins. But had the opportunity arisen, like that probably would have popped in my mind. Like, I'm not ready.
Yeah, like if I were to ask you before I just booked him without even talking to you.
But it's that's the answer right there. It's like you just become ready, or or like I said, or we didn't, and like I didn't do my research, and it probably wouldn't have been bad, but it would have been just fine. And the problem is that I would have known that it would have been just fine, and that feeling is terrible. Like when you give 60% all the time, then when you fail, you're like, well, I didn't try hard anyway, so like I can't be super disappointed in myself. And I think that's where like being afraid of success comes into play, because I used to think that was so stupid. Like, how could you be afraid of success and be afraid of having money, being rich, being able to do whatever you want? It's like, because we subconsciously know how difficult it will be to be successful. Like, it will be difficult. Those things will be hard to do, but like you're capable of doing them. Most people are capable of doing the things that they, want to do. Like, at least for us, speaking for me, like I'm capable of speaking to this mic and doing research, and it just came down to doing it. And I didn't really have a choice. It was just like, it's coming. So like level up.
Yeah. I mean, this reminds me of you talking in a previous episode about creating high stakes for yourself and like actually putting something meaningful on the line. And I think that by taking this kind of backwards planning approach where you do the action first and then force yourself to do the planning in order to be prepared for that thing, it is in a way putting consequences and putting stakes on the table.
Right. Yeah. Like you're saying, it's about putting those things on the line. And so you have to put yourself in that position, and that's really difficult to do. And we've talked about that. We were talking about that with Ben, and I talk about that with Joe and Ramon and, all of my male friends. Like, the reason that we keep doing the thing that we most don't want to do, we keep doing it because like there isn't really anything on the line. I mean, our legacy's on the line, and like the way we feel about ourselves is on the line, but there's not something like concrete, like tangible that we can lose that we're putting on the line, because human beings don't normally do that. It's like, you're not going to tell yourself that you'll, sell your house and be homeless if, in 30 days you stop looking at porn. Like that. We don't do that, but we probably should. And that's the point. And so I think that's what the Something More Society is for. We're trying to, create a place where we can chat with you and where you can chat with other people and talk about those sort of difficult things. And I think that there is power in numbers. And I think the more that people talk about that and the more that people realize everyone's sort of going through that in their own way, that's how change happens. And so we'll have a link below. It's Patreon, we are calling it the Something More Society. There's going to be there already is a book club. We are reading The Art of Gathering. That book's, we just started. That book's already changing our lives, thinking about ways to curate, these very intentional events, and, it talking about taking a stand for your gatherings. And that can be something like as small as like seemingly inconsequential as like a birthday party, which is so sick to even think about. Like,
I mean, it's making me think about the scale of things like us hosting friends for dinner all the way through 100 people in the room for a return to real life event.
Exactly.
How do we span that?
Yeah.
So
anyway,
what are we talking about here in terms of manufacturing your own hype? Or like, if you don't first believe it's possible, it can't happen. Translating to, if you're not the person most excited about what you're doing, how can other people get excited? You said something when we were planning this that I thought was really profound. And you said, we don't want to take the wind out of the sails of the boat that we made.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah.
So if you're excited about something and you put it out into the world and you don't generate hype and you don't share how excited you are, it might look like cool or humble, but like you have to gas yourself and your stuff up. Even like, I think that it can be construed that we're talking specifically about entrepreneurship. I'm not. Like, even if you're working a 9 to 5 and you got a promotion, like, get on LinkedIn, post about it, share about it on Facebook, like, do something that gets that hype and that excitement and that congratulations, because I think there's an opportunity for us to transform the culture of celebration.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And that is something that Ben mentioned that has me thinking about the ways that we take in the small wins, take in the big wins, share them, and do it in a community forward way.
I really love that. I love that you said the 9 to 5 are getting a promotion. And I was like, LinkedIn, well, because that'll do good for your resume, right? That'll do good for your portfolio. You know, even posting on Facebook, maybe the right person will see it. But it's not even about that, actually. Like, it is. But like, just doing that, the way that you'll feel about yourself, like, even if, you know, we're talking about like social media being bad in some ways, whatever, like, it's okay to like be happy that you got a couple likes and a couple comments from people saying that, you know, saying good job. Like, that matters.
Right.
Like, giving yourself the opportunity to receive praise is not wrong.
Right. And
as long as you're doing it with to other people, you know, that deserve it.
And I can't be happy for you if I don't know about it.
Exactly.
Right?
Absolutely, 100%. So I'm glad that you said that, because that's a big deal. Like, getting a promotion is a big deal. It's little stuff like that matters for people, you know, especially men. I think it's little stuff like that really does matter. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I think that's, you know, a lot of times there have been a lot of friends I know that have been teetering on the edge of, you know, a really bad place. And sometimes it is that literally one act of someone reaching out that you haven't heard of in a while, congratulating you or just checking in on you. But if you give them that opportunity, like, most of those people will take it and will tell you, and even in the worst case, like, if they don't and it's consistent, then you know that, you know, maybe you should invest your energy into other people, other relationships, and all those things are information with which to be, you know, better for yourself and be better for the people around you and to live a more fulfilled life.
Yep. And I think that when we get that feedback from other people in a positive way, there is an opportunity to leverage the momentum in these moments of transition, right? So we talked in a previous episode, we read The Big Leap, which is all about kind of how the subconscious mind essentially sabotages us to prevent us from leveling up, because the familiar is safe. And that makes sense in our like subconscious lizard brain. But when we can keep capitalizing on momentum and a snowball effect and be conscious of when the snowball is moving, I think that is kind of like a magical moment, regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur, you're a corporate girly, you're an artist, you're whatever you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of wanted to share some of the tangible ways that we're doing that. So I feel like this conversation could be a bit abstract. We talked about having kind of an eye open and ear to the ground about when we're feeling transformation. So we just moved into a new place. That's very obvious. We just booked some of our most famous guests. That feels really big. Taking in those, but also recognizing that those compound into a larger transformation. And then what are we doing to leverage that momentum? The way that we show up to episodes is different. So we now have a plan for when we're recording, who we're recording with, how we're recording on the calendar for our episodes through November, which makes me feel so good. I fall in the COO category of something more human. So like strategy, planning. Oh, it feels so good. I can't say enough about how much I love that.
How does it really make you feel?
It makes me feel so good.
I'm glad.
And then the way that we are planning for episodes. So you mentioned how much time and research we did for Ben's episode. And because we just did that, there's new momentum to capitalize on, which is this dopamine hit that you got from planning.
Oh, they're going to say from the Zen.
No. From planning this episode, imagining how it's going to go because you've done research on who he is, what kind of guy he is, what kind of questions we want to ask, how the episode will go. We're in this new space. And then the episode went exactly like that. Like, how does that feel? And how are you using that momentum as we think about future episodes?
I think it just feels good to feel, I don't know, it's like I'm sure most people can relate. Like when you're getting ready to go somewhere new, you're on vacation, you're going to Europe, wherever, a country you've never been, a city you've never been. I think all of us, I would assume, at least imagine the times that we will have, the moments that we'll have, the restaurants that we might go to, the view we might see. And almost every single time, unless we're doing like extensive research and we've Google mapped every road, which is sometimes what I do, in a place that we're about to visit.
No joke.
The experience is like almost always different. It's almost always different. And I think that's cool in a way, but it's even more surreal and cerebral and like very, so many words, like strange, the way that it feels when it almost goes exactly the way that you planned it or exactly the way that you envisioned it. It happens very rarely. But it happened for the podcast. I envisioned like Ben sitting there, and I envisioned, the questions that we'd come up with. And I envisioned, the cameras not turning off or overheating. And I envisioned the audio, being what it needed to be, everything being right technically so that we could focus, on the talk itself with Ben. And it went exactly how I thought it was going to go. And that like just doesn't really happen. And I think that that is because, we did our due diligence and we prepared, and it's just like the game of life, not even related to the podcast. But when I was like 16 years old, I worked at It's in Albuquerque. If you don't know what that is, it's like a place for kids to go and have a birthday party, and like there's arcade and stuff and like a buffet. And I was a party planner. Is that what they called them?
Yeah.
I wasn't even a planner. Basically like
party host.
Yeah, exactly, a party host. And I had like the worst outfits all the time. Like I've always notoriously just sucked at outfits until like maybe recently with The Matrix and SpongeBob. But anyway.
Oh, Halloween. Wait, did you have to dress up yourself, or did they give you uniforms?
No, they had like, just give me a uniform. Don't make me choose. I dressed up as like a pirate.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just, like just
what I would give to see some of those photos.
It was just, I think that my friend Michaela has some. I was on my way to It's. I was 16. I was in my little 93 Saturn SL, and I got pulled over, and I was doing like a 55 and a 35 off of like Jefferson and I-25. And I lied to the officer, and I was like, coming from the west side, right in the middle of my drive here, like I had to, basically shoot my brains out, and I was scared I wasn't going to make it. And so like I just, wanted to hurry to get to work so I could go to the bathroom before I had to clock in. He was not having it at all. And he said, "Do you know what the 7 Ps are?" And I was like, "I do not, officer." And he said, "Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. Here's your ticket." And full circle moment. We did plan properly and prior, and it works out. And I think, in every phase of life and anything that you're doing. And I think none of this is novel. It's just our story. But it's great when it happens because you realize, okay, like I just have to put in the work. Like I just have to put in the work, and this thing will go well. And this episode went well. And that's not to say that it's going to get way more listens than any other podcast episode has, but that's not really the point. The point is that we're proud of the work that we did. And it's easy to do that if you have a plan, and then you put in the work to make the plan happen.
I feel like there's a lot of power in the mindfulness and recognition of both when these moments are happening. I've talked about like being aware when you're in transition mode, but also being aware when you are building momentum. Because in most things in life, getting the momentum to start is the most difficult part, or like that first leg of the journey is the most difficult part. Whether it's, saving, if you get a 7% return on investment, you want to save $100,000. To save that first 100K, it takes you like 7.5 years. But to make, once you're at 900K, to make another 100K, it takes you like 1.5 years, right? So like the way that things compound and the way that momentum takes shape and like goes from slow to fast is always a long game. I mean, of course, we live in a world where like you can go viral and it's totally chill and everything happens overnight and then like voila. But for most of us, that's not happening. So how do we take ownership of our lives, and how do we be mindful and purposeful about transition, even if it's bad? Like I kind of want to talk about, maybe you're going through a breakup, or like maybe there's something that's not so super awesome, delightful transformation happening in your life. How can you leverage that emotion or that time or milestone to extend time, like we were talking about earlier, and to guide the pathway.
Yeah.
It's going to be always easier to move momentum in a direction than it is to take from zero to start.
Just thinking of a particular situation that we could use as an example, like just being single and, really wanting to find somebody and just not, having found that person. Or we could use any example, but I think the thing that I wanted to say that I thought about as soon as you said that is like the way that time can stretch when you are in the act of planning, like often. Like I would think someone like me who really struggles with routine, you'd think that like giving yourself the freedom to not have a routine and to sort of like take you where the wind goes and like you're so open to like all these new experiences would sort of expand time. But I think that we as humans are not wired that way. And I think that's kind of why the sun exists and that's why the world exists the way that it does. Like this, it's like this cycle, like the universe itself has routine. Do you know what I mean? And we're part of that universe. And so we inevitably need routine. And I think routine is actually what stretches time. I think having a plan to like do all these things that we're doing, or like, I know we keep coming back to this episode of Ben, like I'm not trying to we are hitting it, the nail. What is it?
Hit it on the nose.
Too many times. But I'm just trying to make a point that when you're planning even something as simple as that, it does stretch time. And also actually, this is juicy. When you go through a breakup and like you just want time to pass, like especially if you've been through multiple, like and well, at least for me, like that it's just going to take time. Like that it's going to take time. And I think that we should take advantage of that. We should find a way to take advantage of that. And it's like, oh, how you can't relate to you're married, but like in other ways, like struggling, like time seems to stretch when you're in pain. But like, how can you leverage those moments of pain? Because time is all we get, dude. Like it's all that we have. And so much of us spend like so much time doing things that we don't even really want to be doing. And so like, how do you, I don't know if I'm going way off tangent, but you're talking about like in an opposite way and like pain and stretching time. And I think that my point is like having a plan of action in your life for those moments does stretch time. And I think that is the coolest thing that we have the power to do is like time is perspective, in my opinion. And we all know that because that thing I was reading to, I think I've talked about in an episode before when we were in therapy. And I was like, if you're sitting on a stove for a minute, it feels like an hour. But if you're sitting with a pretty woman for an hour, it feels like a minute or something like that. You know what I mean? So like time is perspective.
Answering my own question, maybe my answer is like thinking about feedback or betterment as that little like power up jewel, and whether it's a positive situation that you're in or a negative situation, whether you're experiencing joy or pain, being conscious of what got you there and what will it take to move you forward, and what we're learning like tangibly in this moment of transition and metamorphosis is the extension of planning, the extension of research, and the kind of boldness to like reach out to people. Hey, do you want to be a guest on our show? All work very well together. And so because we've done that one time and we have this little bit of momentum, we can't go back to the way that we've done it before.
Exactly.
So now
it's kind of impossible.
Yeah, we've reached a milestone. We know what's working, and what got us here is no longer going to get us to the next thing. So we need to adapt. And the only way to give yourself that power is to be mindful and aware of your season of life.
Yeah, for sure. And this, again, I feel like we said in the very beginning of the episode, but we're saying we, and we're totally talking to you too. Like we always are. And I think that's what we want. Like you and I really honestly want the opportunity to like help others to like see their story and to be there with them as they go through it, and to, give them perspective if they want it, but also like inevitably we'll get perspective from them because that's the human experience, So when we're talking about our story, we're really also talking about yours. And we think there's so many ways to achieve the thing that you want to achieve. And I really think that it begins with community, which is why we're doing the Return to Real Life events, and which is why we're doing these episodes and trying to give more power to them, because like conversations with new people first of all, it's a new experience in your life, which is, I think, a beautiful thing. Like, you'll never forget at least the first time that you met someone, and that it happens to be like in our living room talking about something really important. That's like the art of gathering, dude. Kind of getting like a little bit of the hairs in the back of my neck are standing up. Like, this is a gathering.
Yeah, no, it is.
You know, I just had a Bible verse pop in my head where two are gathered in my name, there I am. Like, but I think that's true in a lot of ways. Like, where two or more are gathered, you know, in the name of humanity, like the universe is listening and the universe cares, and those people care for each other, and that's a really big deal. So, again, we really appreciate you being here and watching and listening, and we're going to invest more time into our YouTube page, because I think that it really matters, and I think the visuals are pretty important. And
if you guys want to see Venus being just the cutest, absolute something more human mascot, YouTube is for sure the place to do it.
Amen. But anyway, yeah, we want to connect with you on a deeper level, and we can always do that through DM, or if you live in Denver, or if, you know, we're having a return to real life event in your city, which inevitably we will in the next however many months.
We want to celebrate you. So like if you just done something cool, you got a promotion, you launched a new project,
shoot us a DM.
Send us a DM.
We'll freaking hype you up, man. We'll hype you up. But what I wanted to say is, yeah, that's what the Something More Human Society is for.
The Something More Society is the go-to place to level up or power up or boost up, whatever it's called, your connection, community, and collaboration.
Honestly, you just listening really means a lot to us. We really appreciate it. And, you know, if you could leave a review on Apple or your favorite platform, that would also be really nice. And we'd really appreciate it. And we will see you for the next episode.
Love you guys.
See you later. We're ditching the surface level relationships, so join us in creating something more human.
We're so happy that you're here, and we always want to go deeper with you. So we created the Something More Society. It's the go-to place to level up your connection, community, and collaboration. We have monthly book clubs, exclusive chat channels, mini episodes and Q&As with Elliot and I, and so much more.
If you're enjoying the show and want to find other ways to support, you can hit follow or subscribe on your favorite listening or viewing platform. Leaving a 5-star review would go a long way, along with a thoughtful review. Thank you so much.
Love you guys.